In this video, we'll show how you can add bubble help to the alphabet buttons in a grid component, showing how many records are going to be in each group. So you can see here we have a grid that's based on the Northwind customer table. We have our alphabet button searches over here, and if I put my mouse over a button, I can see that in the bubble help that'll tell me how many records will be in that group. So this particular button bar is defined to filter on the country field. So if I go ahead here and click on A, I find all countries that start with the letter A, and the bubble help tells me that there are going to be 5 records in the group, in fact, which there are. So if I go now and hold my mouse over the B button, it says 11, and if I tap on the button, you can see there are the 11 records in that group. So essentially what we've done is we've added bubble help to each button in the alphabet button search bar, telling us how many records will be in that group if we go ahead and tap the button. So the way this was done is, you can see here, if we go back to our client-side events, we'll see that in the on-grid render event, we're going to make an AJAX callback to this function xb underbar alphabet. And if we go and look at this function xb underbar alphabet, this function over here is responsible for computing the number of records in each group and then generating the JavaScript that will set the bubble help. So the JavaScript that sets the bubble help relies on the fact that every button in the button bar has a unique ID. So you can see here we're using the Chrome developer tools to inspect one of the buttons, and we can see that the button there has a unique ID that contains the component name, which in this case is grid 1, then the word alphabet, and then followed by the letter of the button. So we're going to use the button ID when we generate our JavaScript. So now let's go ahead here and put a debug 1 in this XBasic code so we can actually walk through the code as it executes. So we'll go now and we'll run our component, and here we are in the AJAX callback, and we can basically step through the code now. So this variable e.underbar si.fsp gives us the current filter for the search part, but since we haven't yet entered any filter into the search part, the search part filter is blank. So you can see the filter is blank, and also the arguments are blank as well. But the record count, which is over there, is in this value e.underbar si.record count, and that tells us that there are 88 records in the current query. So here we go ahead now and create the SQL statement that's going to count the number of records in each group, where a group is defined by all of the records in a country that start with a particular letter. So you can see here we're basically grouping by left country comma 1, so that's finding all the records in countries that start with A or B or C, etc. And then here we're basically getting the count. So we now have a SQL query that gives us the count of the number of records in each group. So we're going to go ahead now and execute that query and then get the resulting JSON from that. So you can see if we look at our JSON right now, we see that we have an array that has the expression and the count. So we know that now that there are 5 records in the group A, which is all countries that start with A, and that there are 11 records in all countries that start with B, etc. But you can see here that not every letter is represented. There were no countries that start with E, so therefore there is nothing in this JSON array that starts with an E. So now what we're going to do is fill in all of the missing values. So we're going to basically create a string here that has all of the letters of the alphabet, and then we're going to loop over that string, and if there's nothing in this array over here that corresponds to one of these letters, we're going to basically set the count to 0. So this code over here is just for the sole purpose of filling in all of the missing values. So let's pause now and pick this up in the next video. So continuing now with the walkthrough of the XBasic function that generates the JavaScript to add the bubble help to the buttons. This code over here is going to basically fill in all of the missing values. So you can see here, as we discussed earlier, that there were no countries that start with an E, so therefore there's nothing in this array for countries that start with an E. So we're going to just loop over this and fill in all of the missing values. So we're going to basically pass this JSON over here, and then if we don't find a corresponding value for each of these letters, we're going to basically add the letter with the count of 0 over there. So as we go through this process, we'll finish up, and I'll just skip all the way over to there. So I'll just go here and set my breakpoint over there, and then run the code all the way over there. And now if we look at our array, we should be able to see now that let's go now and look at P, and we can see now that we filled in at the end of the array, we filled in E now, which was missing, and there's the count of 0. So now we have values for every single letter of the alphabet, and now we're going to basically loop over this array and generate the JavaScript. So if we just go there, and let's jump all the way to the end and then run this, and now take a look at this JavaScript here. We'll see that we've generated JavaScript now that sets the bubble help. So we've used the explicit ID for each button, and we've set its title property to the string here that says count 5. So we've set the A button to have a property to have a title of count 5, and the B button to have a property of a title property of count 11, etc. And then we just basically send this JavaScript that we've computed on the server side back as the response from the AJAX callback. So go ahead there and hit the run button, and we can see now when we put our mouse over the button that we see the title. So, and then if we put our mouse over the all button, we can see that that there are 88 records when we show all records, and that corresponds with this 88 over there. But what happens if we were to go now to the search part over here and enter some search criteria so that there were no longer 88 records but fewer records in the grid? So we'll go here and we'll type in, say, MEX, U. So what that'll do is find all records that start with either MEX or have the letter U anywhere in the country name. So we'll go ahead there and hit the search button, and we now are in our AJAX callback. Let's just run through that quickly and ignore it for the time being. So now we have 33 records, and if we were to click on the A button, there would only be 2 records now. So what we've done is we've conditioned our computation of the number of records in each group based on the filter that's available, that's been used in the search part. So now let's go ahead. Now if we were to go ahead and just click the search button again, we can see now that when we go through this, that arguments basically is no longer blank as it was previously, but it's showing us what the value is of this country 1 argument, and that the search part filter now is also no longer blank. It's now equal to countries like country 1 or countries like country 2. So this, these arguments and this filter here represent the filter that was applied in the search part. And what we want to do is we want to use this filter in the SQL statement here that computes the number of records in each group. So let's look at now how this was done. So we're going to go there. There's our SQL statement that doesn't have any filter in it, and then we're going to basically take this filter expression and we're going to pass it using the SQL query logical expression object. So we're going to go ahead now and pass the filter expression. Then we're going to pass the SQL expression over there, which is the SQL over there, and we're going to add in the filter. So you'll see over here we basically say q.where equals le. So le is the passed filter expression, and then we're going to generate a new SQL statement over there, and you can see what we have now is the SQL statement that looks like this, excepting that we've now added in a where clause. So now when we compute our number of records in each group, so continuing now with our video, we've shown how we can take the filter that was applied in the search part and add that filter into the SQL statement that computes the number of records in each group, and then everything else is the same as we demonstrated earlier on in the video. We're going to now go and add in all of the missing values, and then we're going to generate the JavaScript to set the title property. Go ahead now and run. So there's our component. If we put our button over the all button, it says 33. If we go there and look at the A button, there are now 2 records. So let's go ahead now and click that. So we'll go ahead and run. So here are our 2 records, and there's the countries that have the letter U in them, which is Austria over there. So what we've shown over here is how you can use your own XBasic code in an Ajax callback to compute the number of records in each group in an alphabet button search, and add bubble help to the buttons that give the user a preview of the number of records that would be found when they click on a particular button. Thanks very much for watching.